Welcome to Behind the Crown podcast with your hosts, Brian Hudson and Josh Griffin. Sit back and enjoy these great stories and memories of the Kingsmen Quartet.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 5 of Behind the Crown podcast with your host, Josh Griffin. Unfortunately, Brian is having some technical issues tonight, so we cannot get him on tonight, and we hate that so bad, and we're going to miss him.
Yeah.
But we have a very special guest with us tonight, and probably the first Kingsman tenor, I know it is, that I've ever heard live in concert before, none other than Mr. Jerry Martin. Thank you, Mr. Jerry, for being here, sir.
Absolutely. My pleasure, Josh. I'm thrilled to be here. I love the podcast, what you're doing, getting a lot of the great stories from the Kingsmen. It's a great legacy to really do something for them. They're my favorite, always will be my favorite quartet, and so I'm just honored to be here.
Well, thank you, sir. We appreciate you doing this and being on with us. Mr. Jerry, if you don't mind, let's start it out with talk about when you was growing up. Were you a fan of Southern gospel music? And if you were, who were some of your favorite groups back then?
Yeah. First starting out, my mom and dad were with a group out of Virginia. I was born in Newport News, Virginia, and then we moved when I was 2 years old down to my dad's home place in Bladenboro, North Carolina, which is a very small little town. Had one stoplight still to this day, but there was a lot of great singers and talent that came out of there. So at a very early age, I was on a tour bus. I was on a quartet bus. My mom played the piano, and they would feature her to sing. My dad sang tenor for the quartet. Early on, and I would be on stage on 2 years old. That was my first paying gig at 2 years old. I might have got a quarter or something, but I remember I would sing "I'll Fly Away" and "Mama's Teaching Angels How to Sing," and so that was my big hits right there. So, but yeah, growing up, we grew up in a musical family where even my brother and sister, they could sing. They didn't pursue it like I wanted to. That's all I ever wanted to do was sing. And we grew up listening to the Statesmen, the Blackwood Brothers, Cathedrals, the Rebels. Of course, the Kingsmen, and that was my dad's favorite group as well. But so having that kind of background, listening to Southern gospel a lot, growing up, and then singing in churches, and that's where I kind of got the love for Southern gospel music. I remember my mom was my biggest supporter, and my singing career almost never happened. And a lot of people don't know this, but so I tell my story a little here and there. But growing up, my mom was super proud of me, and she really supported what I wanted to do. Dreams and goals and things. And she knew that I wanted to sing. So, and I sang in church. I sang in revivals and homecomings and things like that. I sang with my mom and dad as a trio, and so. She took me, when I was 9 years old, she took me to a couple of guys who were prominent, really, in the music industry, and they actually lived in Bladenboro. So I was there, and so I sang for them. And of course, back then, and I was painfully shy. So but I would when I sing, just like Brian has said in his podcast, you kind of just sing by letter, open up and let her fly.
Yeah.
And that's the way I was brought up to a certain point. But I remember I would sing, and they told me, said, well, he doesn't have what it takes to make it into the music industry.
Oh.
So we left. And so you can imagine 9 years old that's all I ever wanted to do. And these guys who had some moderate success in the industry, you tell a 9-year-old boy that, and so you kind of breaks his heart and dashes the hopes, right? So, but my mom, she still supported me, and she said, "No, we're not listening to them." Right. So I kept singing, and I don't know, Josh, if you even remember what this is, but 8-track tapes. This is before cassettes, before.
I've heard of them and seen them, but never listened to one. But
Right. All right, so at 9 years old, I recorded my very first album, and there was 22 songs on there. Wow. And that was it. It was on an 8-track. So I was like, well, there's my first recording. It's probably somewhere in a box somewhere. I have no idea where it's at, but I remember. So then, I guess, a little older, I was around 12, 13 years old. And I remember I was at church, and I'd always get called up to sing special music and things like that. I could hear harmony really easy in my younger years. It just happened naturally for me. And so I'll be put in all these different choirs at church so I could sing the harmony and kind of put other ones on their harmony parts. But I remember one evening at church that I had two guys that I really liked. I was like, man, I want to be friends with them, and they started bullying me because singing, and say, that's not you singing, all of this kind of stuff like that, and it really took a toll on me. So it wasn't really long after that kind of stuff happened that I stopped singing. I didn't sing a note for about 5 years, not on the radio, not in the car, not anywhere. And then one day, I was like, you know what? I'm not letting anybody tell me I can't do what I love to do. Right. And so I just talked to the Lord, just like I'm talking to you right now. Right. And I said, Lord, if you want me to pursue this, you open up the door, and I will sing again. So it was probably, I will say, not even a month when I did that, and I got an opportunity to sing with a quartet out of Lumberton, North Carolina. Is a regional quartet. They traveled full time. They're called the Lumber River Quartet. One of my favorite quartets during that era, and I just love them. And they would open up for Gold City and all these pro groups like that. And I was like, I'd see them in concert here and there, and I just thought, wow, if I could be with them, that I have it made, right? Yeah. And their tenor was having a little bit of vocal trouble, and so never sang in a quartet in my life, and I love quartet singing. So I got the opportunity to audition, and when I did, they said, "Yeah," he said, "You'll be filling in until the tenor comes back." I said, "No problem. I get to actually get to sing with you guys." So 3 years later, I was still with them, and so the dynamic kind of changed there, and so I became their tenor. And the first album that I recorded was a remake of one of their that they just came out with, and it's called "Counting on Jesus." And I remember there was a song that we added on there for me, and it was actually a Brian Free feature. I think he did it with Gold City, maybe. It was "Beneath This Armor." Yes. Beautiful, great song, and so I got to cut that. Well, me being a huge, huge Kingsman fan, we went up to actually Asheville, North Carolina, and recorded it at Horizon Records, which back then was the Kingsmen had the office at Horizon Records. Okay. So I'm walking in, and who do I see? I see Eldridge Fox. I see Parker Jonathan, I see Anthony Berger, and I'm just looking around and I'm starstruck. It's like,
Yeah.
wow, that's my musical heroes right there. And they're right here. And I've got to go and record an album in front of them because they were out and in and they would listen. And so that was kind of my introduction to the Kingsmen in that capacity. Now, earlier, I had the privilege to, my dad would, we went to Wilmington, North Carolina, and it was I believe it was at some college, I believe. And it was the Harvesters Quartet, great regional quartet. I love to hear them. And they were opening up for the Mighty Kingsmen.
Yeah.
And that lineup, it was, Gary Shepard, it was Jim Hamill, Tim Surratt, and then Parker Jonathan, Ray Dean Reese, and then they had, the band, which is amazing. Anthony was still there at that time, and I was just blown away. I was like, wow. When they took that stage, it was magic. I was like, that's exactly what I want to do. And so, once I, kind of went into with a Lumber River Quartet, I'm like, wow, this is what a quartet singing with a quartet feels like,
Yeah.
And who knows, maybe one day, I'll get to sing with the Kingsmen. You never know. So that's kind of how it all started for me. Is getting brought up into Southern gospel music that way, and then kind of is being told that I didn't have what it took to do that, but then God opened up that door, and when He did, you just walk through. You got to be faithful. So
That's right.
when you do that, then sky's the limit. That's what I tell my students all the time. Sky's the limit. So
That's right. Yeah, that's right. So, going from there,
yeah.
you eventually ended up joining the Kingsmen. Speak a little bit about the audition process, if you don't mind.
Yeah. Well, it was kind of funny because going from Lumber River Quartet, there's a story there, and one time we hosted at Fayetteville, North Carolina, the Coliseum there. We hosted the Inspirations and the Kingsmen, and I had no clue that one of my mentors, Gary Shepard, I love him, was leaving the Kingsmen. And I was like, oh, and I had no idea until that night when I was approached because we opened up for him, and Parker came out and said, hey, I want your number. Gary's leaving, and would like to see if you're interested. I was still just blown away. So they left. I went on about my business, and it was that Monday morning they called, and Parker called, and I remember, and he was telling me about, would really like for you to come up and audition. We like what we heard, and so I made a decision, and probably not one of the most popular decisions, I would say that, but I turned them down. I turned them down, and the reason why I turned them down was I didn't feel I was ready to take on that big of a responsibility because, that's what some people they see them on stage, they see them, in the lights and things like that, but they don't realize the responsibility to carry on that legacy or to be even in a professional level, and what it takes as a person to do that and stay there and maintain that, because there's a lot that's asked of you, a lot of pressure. Because if you can't cut it, then you're out, and that's just the way it is,
Right.
unfortunately. But and I'll say this too: it's kind of funny, but it's real. You kind of can view Southern gospel in a way of major leagues and minor leagues. I get up to like baseball, right? So
Yeah.
so you got your great local quartets and singers, right? So you're kind of learning the ropes, so to speak, and learning how to sing and things like that. And then you can move up to regional, who they do tour, and my hat's off to them because that's amazing to be able to hold down a job and to still sing with that quality,
Yeah.
and then get back to work the next Monday morning.
And
It's a
travel
lot.
a good bit too, because some go like 2 or 3 states away. Yeah, that's right.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
absolutely.
yeah,
Lumber River, getting back to them, they did carry a full time schedule. And they were all over the seaboard, eastern seaboard, and all up into Canada.
yeah,
I mean, it was like it was not a time off. It was, you did the weekends, and you would do either Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, just like a pro group would do. And they had jobs where they could kind of do that, which made them a little special. And so I really enjoyed being with them, but I learned a lot from them. And then you make it up to we can say up. You're getting called up to the major, so to speak, right?
yeah,
But you got to be ready. You
yeah,
really got to be ready, because if you're not, you won't last.
yeah,
You really won't, because you could hurt yourself. And uh, so you don't want to do that. You want to make sure that you're ready physically, vocally, and mentally, because it takes it all to be there, right? But I remember I was with a group called the Melody Airs. They're out of Travelers Rest, South Carolina, and I love that group. I love that family, and I help those. I help them out consultation wise and vocal wise today. Um, so I remember that I called Eldridge and said, "Hey, um, is there anybody looking for a tenor?" Um, and he said, "Give me an hour. I'm going to call you back," because of course we didn't have cell phones back then. It was just either pay phones or it was your home phone. And so, and he called me back. He said, "Hey, can you be in Travelers Rest uh, this Friday?" I said, "Yeah, I can do that." And so I did. So me and my dad went there, and Eldridge came down from Asheville to actually play for my audition with the Melody Airs.
oh,
And they were really good friends, really good friends. Charlie Baker, he was a fantastic bass singer and human being. I love that family, I really do. And Johnny is carrying on that legacy that the Melody Airs had that long ago. Um, but I remember that he'd come down, and my dad was awestruck too, because it's like, that's Eldridge Fox. He's playing for you. I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, this is pretty awesome, right? So we did a couple songs. That night they hired me, and I stayed with them for a few years. And Eldridge said, "Okay, now I know where you are. So when I need you, then I'm going to call you." So that's kind of how it worked. And he kept tabs on me. We became really good friends. Um, and I remember that I was at my house, and I had no phone. They were working on the phone lines, so I had no phone for a week, and so I had no clue. And so Charlie come running, driving up in his truck, right? And I mean, there was dust flying everywhere. He jumped out of the truck,
yeah,
and he come running to the door. He said, "Hey," he said, "what are you doing?" I said, "I'm just being right here." He said, "Well, I've been trying to get in touch with you." I said, "Well, the phone lines have been down," so I explained that to him.
yeah.
He said, "Well, how would you like to sing with the greatest quartet in Southern gospel music?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, Get in the truck. Get in the truck. Greg Fox has been trying to call you for a couple of days, and now, so he said he's fixing to call you back at my house in a few minutes." Jumped in the truck, went to his house, and I talked to Greg,
Right.
and he wanted me to come up and audition. So I did. I remember it was on a Friday again, and so what I remember about that was they always parked the bus at this gas station, and so I remember parking there, and I was waiting on Greg, and they were auditioning. I don't know how many tenors for this process because Gary just left. Um, no, Gary, no, it was Chris. Chris, that's right. And Chris, a fantastic tenor in his own right. I love that era and great songs, but I really like Chris a lot. Um, but he was leaving, he was transitioning out, and so I waited, and then here comes Greg down with the car and picks me up, and we drive up to Eldridge's house. I'm like, oh, okay, I'm at Eldridge's house, so no pressure. And then I walk in, and I walk into this living room that opens up, and I see Eldridge right in the middle of it in this huge recliner, like a throne, and it's like, wow, there's Eldridge. Then I see to my left, there are the current lineup of the Kingsmen. You had Brian, which phenomenal singer. I was like, wow, that's Brian Hudson right there. And see Ray Dean, and then Andrew and Parker and Randy Miller was there. And they had the keyboard set up and everything. Right. Then I see behind Eldridge some of the original Kingsmen and their families. I mean, so they're bringing everybody.
Out. Yeah.
And so that was a lot of pressure. And I was just sitting here starstruck, mesmerized. And then it's like, okay, let's sing. I'm like, okay, here we go. And so I gave it my best shot.
Right.
We sang "You're Not Alone," "Glory Road," whatever they wanted me to sing, I would sing. And after that, talked to him for a little while, and then Greg shuttled me back down to my car. And as he was doing that, he said, "I just want you to know you got the job." And so I was like, "Wow!" It finally came around, a full circle again for me with the Kingsmen. First, knowing that I didn't feel I was ready to take on that responsibility, but this time I was ready, and I made the most of it. And so I remember that very vividly, and I was like, wow, I can't believe that I'm going to be a Kingsman. So that was a very special moment for me.
That's right. And that tells a lot about your character, realizing, hey, I'm not ready the first time around. Let me get a little bit more seasoning, I guess you would say.
Yeah.
Work on myself and make sure that when nothing happens, Lord willing, if I do get the call and they try me out and I get the job, then hey, I'll be ready to go then. Yeah.
That's right. With the experience in many different areas, like I said, you got to be prepared in a lot of different ways, not just vocally. And so when I felt that I was ready and I got that opportunity, that's when I took it. I said, yeah, it's time, and I can't wait to try that. So, yeah.
And with your parents being big Kingsman fans, your dad and all, what did they say when you gave them the news?
It was over the moon. It's really awesome. Very proud, and because my mom was a huge supporter of, like I said, me growing up, and she knew this is what I wanted to do, and she always, even when I stopped singing, even she was in my encourager, and so so that's another big thing that that I was able to have and a support. My mom and dad are, they're passed on now.
Yeah.
So, but getting that moment and sharing those little moments with them. Hey, my dad got to meet Eldridge, got to do these things, and then finally becoming a Kingsman. That's very special. So
that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. And I'll mention this too. With your tenure during the Kingsmen, you were part of 8 top 10 songs, one number 1 song with "He May Be on the Next Cloud," and 6 of those 8 top 10 songs were top 5 songs. Yeah. Recorded 9 albums with the Kingsmen. That's including the mainline albums and the table projects, as we call them as well. And then some of the songs that you were featured on: "Way Down Inside of Me," "Angels in Flight," "Going Home to Live." Of course, y'all recut on Not Quite as Big, but just as live album. Yeah. "Look for Me at Jesus' Feet."
Mm-hmm.
And then a little bit later on, we'll get into it as well. "Shadow of Your Wings" during the Carolina Boys tenure.
Yeah.
And then "More Than a Dream." And with those songs right there,
Way down inside of me, there's a happy melody that Jesus placed way down deep in my soul. When everything is going wrong, I can sing this little song that Jesus placed way down deep in my soul.
Mr. Jerry, go ahead and talk a little bit about the Look For Me at Jesus Feet y'all recorded live in Gadsden, Alabama on that not quite as big, but just as live again album, if you don't mind.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. First of all, with that, there's been just probably every Kingsman pretty much has been featured on that song, sang that song, or either recorded that song. It's a great song. It's a song that's even followed me throughout my whole career. And I've cut it with with several other groups. But when we were putting that album together, kind of paying an honor to that to Big and Live.
Right.
We were on a West Coast trip, a tour, and when we do the West Coast tour, it's about 30 days. And I remember we started right on the East Coast. I don't even know if it was Florida, and we worked our way down through the lower states, and then into California, up into the West Coast, up into Canada, and went across the upper part of the United States, and we ended that tour at Gold City's Homecoming in Gadsden, Alabama. Along the way, we were learning that whole album. So every night we would try to learn and feature one song. And I remember once I learned "Look For Me at Jesus' Feet," we would do that every night. Every night. It was such a powerful message, and one of my favorite songs that I've ever cut. So and really having to have that honor to record that song and sing it. I mean, night after night after night. It was very special to me.
Before my time has come, perhaps you'd like to greet me when my race down here is run. Just wait, or I'll soon be.
Because they trusted me with that song.
Yep.
And so so I would do that, and I remember it was so hot at the Gold City's Homecoming. It was packed, wall to wall people, and the air conditioner went out in that building, and so like I said, you get 1,000 people, however many it was in there, and it's wall to wall. You get all that heat going, and we were in a 3-piece suit. And it was light gray, I remember, and we had the blue dark shirt and the gold tie.
Right.
So we had the vest with it. By the end of that night, it was not light gray. It was dark gray. It was wet from sweat.
Yeah.
But we had a great time that night. I mean, the crowd was really supportive in it. And it, like I said, you could feel the energy in there, and it didn't matter how hot it was. We were having a great time. But yeah, it was a long tour. It was fun though, And speaking of touring with Kingsmen,
Yeah.
Especially on I was talking to one of my students today. She's on our record label, and I was telling her about touring, and she was asking some questions. I'm like, when you go into touring like the Kingsmen did, and we were going, 220, 230, sometimes more than that, 200 dates a year. But you're out in the West Coast, and you're singing just about every night. Um, you got to make it fun,
Yeah.
and you want to be able to see some of the country. And I'll tell you, touring with the Kingsmen was one of my most. It was so fun. It was so fun to do that. Being with those guys, you couldn't ask for anybody better. And the thing about the Kingsman bus, it was neat as a pin.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
with that many guys on there, you're
Yeah.
talking about a bus driver. You're talking about 4 guys singing. You're talking about 4 band members. You're talking about sometimes we'll bring a product guy with us to run the merch table. And then if somebody else wanted to just ride along, sometimes we'd have 12 people on that bus,
Yeah.
and it would be as neat and as clean. And they just knew how to travel. They really
Right.
did. And everybody respected each other. And, everybody it was a family. It really was. Everybody got along. We were friends on and off stage. We hung out on and off stage. It was just a great time to be a Kingsman. It really was.
That's right.
But yeah, look for me. That song has touched so many people.
Yeah.
And it still touches people today. Whoever's singing that song, it don't matter who it is. That message is going to hit home for sure.
That's right. And I'll mention this too as well. During the touring like that, when y'all was gone that many days, I know a bunch of Kingsman guys play golf. Was you a golfer as well?
I tried golfing.
Yeah.
I guess I don't think I ever saw a fairway.
Okay.
I could hit the ball. I could hit it. When I hit it, it would go a long ways. But
Yeah.
if it was straight, it was great. But if it wasn't, it's going to be in the woods or it's going to be, in some sand. So that's pretty much where I kept my time. So I would pack also a shovel, something else just to try to find the ball, and
Yeah.
dig it out. But yeah. So they were good golfers. I mean, really good. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was like, well, I don't think I like to play. But I'm I was no near that caliber, so I'm like, well, I can drive the cart. I'll have fun doing that. So
Yeah, that's right. Oh goodness. Mention the do you remember your first weekend out with the Kingsmen when you were officially hired?
I do. I'm scared to death.
Yeah.
Here I am, and I remember the way it happened. Chris was still traveling with them and he had 2 more weeks before he went off and was singing with the family group. Now, we were on the McCamey's bus because the Kingsman bus was in the shop, and it was the first real 45-foot bus that was ever made.
Yeah.
And the rest of them have been 40 foots. I remember the McCamey's bus was laid out in rooms. They had a front lounge, and then they had a middle room that you could shut with the doors, and then you had a back lounge, or not a back lounge, but a back bedroom.
Yeah.
And because everybody sometimes they were driving at night and they'd go and sleep. So
That's right.
I remember that I was doing a cruise with the Melody Airs, and so I did that, and then I came back, and then they flew me out to Orlando.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember because I had to go to my first date was Leesburg, Florida. It was a high school, and what they would do was Chris would come out and just crush it, like he always did, and he did that for the first half. They'd bring me out after an intermission, and then they'd feature me and introduce me as the new tenor, and I would do a couple of songs, and then we'd end it together. And I remember, and he was so funny and he was so gracious. We were doing Glory Road, and so when we did Glory Road, I would go and do the real high Kingsman stuff. And so Chris and I were singing Glory Road together, right? So and when I went up to do that, he laid flat on the floor. I mean, he just fell on the floor, and he looked up at me, and I looked down, and he goes, what are they going to do? Fire me? And it was hilarious. And I mean, I was trying to hold my composure.
Right.
And he
Yeah.
was just laughing, laying on the floor. But, so like I said, that was my really introduction as a Kingsman in Leesburg, Florida. I loved it. It was a packed house. I got a really good welcome there, a warm welcome. And it was amazing. The very next night, though, and you might remember this, is Fitzgerald, Georgia.
Yeah. My hometown. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're over there, and it's with Gold City
Hmm.
and Kingsman, and I want to say, I'm not sure if it was the Perrys or I can't remember, but I do remember this. We still didn't have cell phones.
Yeah.
So Gold City had got their merchandise table next to the ticket booth, and there was a phone in there.
Yeah.
So, and we were on the opposite side. So after the concert, they were going to do another night, and it was going to be, I think, Tony Gore and Majesty was there, and somebody else, and they had tickets in the booth they was going to sell. So normally I would go try to find a payphone and call home.
Right.
And when I went in there, Mark Trammell took the dolly and he wedged it underneath the doorknob, so I couldn't get out.
Oh.
So here I am, and I'm finishing the phone call, and the concert's going out. They don't know where I'm at. I mean, I'm in a ticket booth locked in there, and you can see this display glass all around. So I'm kind of like just on display there, and
Yeah.
and so Mark says, "Oh, ladies and gentlemen, come on to the ticket booth and meet the Kingsmen's new tenor." And so I was like, "Really?" And they wouldn't let me out until
Yeah.
just about all the crowd was gone. It was hilarious. So what I did was I started just grabbing tickets, and I act like I was going to be selling the tickets. So
Right.
eventually they let me out that time. But Mark said, "Well, welcome to the crew. That was your initiation from us."
Wow.
So it was kind of like, "Hey, we're glad you're here. Here's, you kind of get that, a little bit."
Yeah.
But, that was fun. And we did a lot of great dates with doing the King's Gold stuff. A lot of dates with the Gold City, and they just became super friends of mine. So, but yeah, it was fun.
How about that? My hometown, Mr. Jerry Martin, legendary Kingsman tenor, remembers my hometown. That's pretty
That's
neat.
right.
Oh, goodness gracious. Well, Jerry, if you don't mind, let's talk a little bit about, I'll mention some guys that you traveled with, their names, and just give a
Okay.
brief memory of them, if you don't mind. I know you traveled with him just a little bit on a special occasion, Jim Hamill.
Yeah, Big Jim. He was an icon. I mean, still is. And I remember because he was doing some solo work at that time, recording for Crossroads, and we would go and do select dates with him. And for most of the time, he would do some King's Gold stuff, and how he would lead that. But he was always, for me, the brief time that I got to be with him, very genuine, very supportive of me, and very encouraging. He really was. And you hear stories of how when he's on stage, how he can kind of he'll tear you down a little bit,
Yep.
only to build you up even bigger than people thought you were.
That's
And
right.
it was a strategy that as he's picking on you,
Yep.
and then later on you shine.
Uh-huh.
That's what he was doing for a lot of the
Yeah.
a lot of the singers with the Kingsmen, and he was a master at emceeing. I really enjoyed being with him because I remember going up into Jonathan Bird's cafeteria. I believe it was. I'm sure it was either Indiana. Brian would know. He knows everything.
That's right.
And you can correct me if I'm wrong, but we'd always do that every year.
Yeah.
And sometimes when he was doing his solo, he would open up for the Kingsmen, and then we would have him to join us on a few songs,
Right.
and then he would be done. But and then he'd be on our bus. Every once in a while, travel with us, but a lot of times, either he'd fly to wherever or he'd drive.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed listening to him, some of his stories, and he was just a fun guy for me. But yeah, always really encouraging to me, and that's what I always respected. That I was like, man, thank you so much, because he didn't have to do that. Yeah, and
That's
so
that's right. Ray Dean Reese, cousin.
ah, I love Ray Dean Reese. That's my buddy.
Yeah.
Um, can't say enough good things about Ray. Uh, I've always he, I've always loved Ray. His passion for singing. The for the quartet itself. I mean, he lived it. He really did, and and you can learn a lot from someone um, who really knows that aspect of the business and knows how to carry himself professionally. I remember first day I got on that McCamey's bus, and you didn't have the little pocket doors. You had the shutting the doors with the doorknob. And he remember he said, "Hey, when you go back there, make sure you twist the knob, open up, and when you shut it, and then twist it so you don't hear that click." And he was doing that because, like I said before, you might have someone who's driving all night, they're still sleeping, and you're going in and out. So it's like, keep the lights off. And really, so he taught me how to shut a quartet bus door. And I was like, hey, that's pretty cool, because I don't want nobody mad at me.
Yeah. That's right.
But I remember also the way we would set sound with him. And he'd go, hey, Jerry, put a little air underneath my vocal there. So I knew how to get his EQ right on his channel to where he could just really project, and it was easy.
Yeah.
And I remember him saying, yeah, just put a little air under that. So, but yeah, traveling with him, it was so easy, and he was so fun. Just like Brian had said in his podcast, he was funny and didn't even try to be,
Yeah.
and but he's a great man.
Yeah.
And yeah, I just really love him. I really do.
That's right. And I'll mention too my favorite bass singer of all time, Ray Dean Reese. Yeah.
Oh
And
yeah,
when
he
Brian
had he had this excitement in his voice,
Oh, yeah.
and it's like, wow, it's awesome. I love it.
That's right. Brian made a dream come true for me one time, well, several times, and also Randy Crawford when he later became the MC. He called me up on stage to sing with the Kingsmen at the concert,
Really?
and Ray Dean, he let me sing with him, and a lot of times he tried to give me the bass mic. I was like, I can't sing, Ray. I was like,
That's
come
right.
up here. They don't want to hear me. I don't want to mess this up. So I always, he'd hold the mic and I'd have him stand close by me, and
Yeah,
he was probably thinking this poor kid can't sing, but he don't know how much that meant to me. Let me do
yeah,
that, and
yeah.
he didn't have to do it.
Right,
Brian didn't have to call me on stage, or Randy
right.
Crawford didn't, but they always did, and
That's right,
just
and
treated me so nice.
that's just kind of the way the Kingsmen
Yeah,
are
yeah,
and were when I was with them. You give people opportunities that they would never have.
yeah.
And they were always gracious about that. And that's what I loved about the Kingsmen. They were genuine, and that's just all there is to it. um, and just like we say, is once a Kingsman, always a Kingsman, and that still holds true.
That's right.
It is a brotherhood, and when you become a friend, you're a friend for life. That's the way they're going to treat you like family, and that's what's so special. That's why I think what makes them really stand out, and what's really special about them for me.
Yep, that's right. You mentioned a little bit about him earlier when he hired you and all, but talk a little bit about Mr. Eldridge Fox, if you don't mind.
Yeah, he's a dear friend. He was really very instrumental in my career early on, because that's what he kept following where I was at, what I was doing, um, and it's about Eldridge. It's like he wanted to. He told me when I first walked on that bus, he said, "I don't want you to want for anything. We're going to take care of you always." And that's what he did. He really did, and that's what he wanted for all of his guys. great singer, big voice, um, but he could be funny. He could be a character too, and I really loved him. Respected him so much, um, and I was there towards the end of his life, um, and but even towards that, it's like you know you still have that bond with him, and it's just like uh, you're always gonna have that fond memories of him and what he's done for you.
That's right.
And yeah, he was a special man. He really was.
That's right. Mr. Jerry, if you don't mind mentioning a little bit back when the Kings retired the name back in the September 2001,
Hmm.
y'all traveled. What Nick Succi told me, I interviewed him for
Yeah,
another podcast I do featuring the musicians of Southern gospel music.
awesome.
He said y'all traveled a little bit as a group with no name, basically.
We did.
Talk a little bit about a time and how they come up with the name Carolina Boys, since that's a big part of the Kingsman history as well. I'll say it is. Yeah.
It really is. At one time, um, they they were, I guess, going to retire the name, um, and there was a kind of a group of investors or something. I don't know all the logistics of that,
Yeah. Yeah.
but I do remember that they was going to make some changes that shouldn't have been made. I'll go that as far as that, and we took a stand. We said this is not the way it's going to be,
Right.
and so really basically we were told you couldn't perform under that name anymore, um, and so we were without a name.
Yeah.
We were still doing the dates, but promoters could not mention
Yeah.
the Kingsman name
Right.
without threat of being sued,
Yeah.
which was a terrible thing
Yeah.
for anybody to do. Um, and I remember that Ray came up to us and said, "Hey, I think I got us a name that we can go under,"
Yep.
and it was the Carolina Boys.
Yep.
And he got in touch with the guy who owned that, and they weren't doing anything with. They had retired that name.
Yeah.
So of course, us being from North Carolina,
That's right.
so well that makes some sense. Other than we can't keep our name, so we had to go under that name, and we did. So we did that for a while, and it's kind of a tough thing,
Yeah.
because the promoters couldn't promote you as a Kingsman.
Right.
They couldn't even say formally Kingsman.
Right.
It was just you have to do the Carolina Boys.
That's right.
We made the best of it. So our fan base was very true to us and very supportive of us.
Right.
They didn't understand what was going on.
Right.
For most of us, we didn't either.
Yeah.
We just knew that, this is our living. This is what we're going to do. This is what we're
Y'all
going
want to
to do.
keep going. Yeah.
And we're going
Yeah.
to keep going no matter what.
Yeah.
And so we did, and we just kept going. There was some tough times, I'll say that, and but then things started to come back around, and people finally knew, oh, this is the Kingsmen. They just got to go under this other name for right now. And so that's what happened. And I cut what, 2, I think, with them.
Yes.
Good News and
Honor the Heritage
Honor
Volume
to the
1.
Heritage Volume 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Great albums.
Yeah.
And gosh, I love the songs that we had
That's
during.
right.
I'll take my refuge in the shadow of your wings. For in you my soul will find peace until the storm has passed and I see your face at last. I am safe in the shadow of your wings.
That time, even though it was it's still the Kingsmen,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
just under a different name that we had to do.
That's right.
Not by
Yeah.
not by choice, but but it all worked out in the end.
Yeah. That's right. Great songs still, like you said, great albums. And when y'all
Absolutely.
went back and recut new tracks on those old classics,
Yeah.
for somebody that was me coming along, listening to the Kingsmen at that time after it went back to the Kingsmen name in '04, I was like, I've never heard these songs. And I was like, man, this is good stuff, you know?
Yeah.
And just went from there and found the original cuts of them too. I said, they did a great
Right.
job, you know? Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
Yep.
Yeah, we had there was some fantastic songs on Honor the Heritage.
Can you imagine? Oh,
Yeah,
Saints
those
Will
are some
Rise?
fun songs. Yeah,
Yeah.
Saints Will Rise. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to be able to not just sing those, but to re-record those,
Yeah.
that was awesome. That
That's
really
right.
was.
Yeah.
And they were fun
Yeah.
songs to sing in concert. I'm telling you. So you can just feel that energy, but they were great songs anyway. So it was really good that we did that.
That's right.
So yeah, I really had a great time singing those songs.
Speaking of that recorded, do you remember if y'all ever staged Anchors Away?
We did. I think we did. Yeah. Anchors Away, several songs off of that one.
Yeah.
There was one that I really wanted to do. I'm drawing a blank, but I'm thinking In the Name of Jesus.
I'm going to
maybe?
pull it up on my phone here.
Yeah.
I got it in my Apple library, music library. Let's see. When I say I'm a Kingsman fan,
Yeah.
Let's see here. Let me go. I've got it here somewhere. Let's see. There we go, right there. Go and Tell Somebody. Stand Up. Wish You Were Here, featuring Jason Self.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Healing Stream, Anchor's Way, He Touched Me, featuring Randy Crawford. The Judgment.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Saints Will Rise. Child, featuring Parker Johnson. Can You Imagine, and Look for Me at Jesus' Feet as well.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That, like I said, that's a great album. Yeah, we did. We probably did all those songs.
Yeah.
Every one of them. And they were fun to do. When Jason started singing "Wish You Were Here," Brian. Gosh, I can't say enough about Brian. Love Brian. Brian was. I think we were kind of inseparable during the time that we were together, because we did everything. We ate together, everything. So Brian was like one of my best friends, and I got to travel with him. You know, it was really a cool thing. Not to mention that he just fantastic vocalist. And I remember when Jason came with us, and of course, you know, I sang with him with Lumber River Quartet. You know, he's the one that I said, yeah, we've got to bring him up from Okeechobee because he's fantastic, and he was a big Kingsman fan like I was. And I'm like, okay, and for him to come into that as well was amazing. And then I knew he sang that. We sang it with Lumber River. Yep. I'm like, oh well, maybe you get an opportunity. And yeah, Brian was gracious enough to step back and let Jason have that. But Jason, I can't say enough about Jason. Brian hit on his podcast or his interview was he was the quietest guy to ever travel with, and he was very humble. Yeah, very humble guy, and very easy to travel with, and funny. Yeah. He was very funny, and of course, strong as an ox. He was a workout guy. He's amazing. But for him to be able to play and sing, like that was incredible. You know, I'm glad he got that opportunity to be with the Kingsmen. You know, his favorite group as well, and so it was really cool to see him do that.
And to hear some of y'all's live stuff back in the day, some people sent me like some audience recordings of y'all. Him playing the bass, that Yamaha 5-string.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
cut through the mix, and I'm talking about doing some licks. I was like, and
Yeah.
I'm a bass player. Well, I play at bass, and I and I play with a local group here locally.
Yeah.
You know, we're
Hmm.
not a regional group. We do some about 2 or 3 weekends a month. You know,
Sure.
like a Sunday deal. But
Hmm.
just listen to him, and I bought a 5-string bass just because of him, but active bass.
Wow.
But just to listen to
Yeah.
him, I was like, how in the world? I would like to know what in the all was going on in his mind, how he
Yeah.
comes up with that stuff. Because man, it just
He would
great
always
stuff.
practice.
Yeah,
He lived with me for about 6 months till he got his own place
yeah,
when we was with Lumber River. And I remember one time because he'd practice, I mean, all night long. And there was one time he didn't do it at our house. It was more where he was living at, and he told me, he said, Jerry, he said, yeah, he said, the police came to my house. I mean, what are you talking about? He said, they came to my house. What time did they come? It was about 2 o'clock in the morning. Oh, what were you doing? Well, I had my headphones on, but I had my bass amp cranked up,
yeah,
and he was playing Kingsman stuff,
yeah.
and so the neighbors, this was waking them up, and so he's. I said, you got to turn it down, or just turn that off and just play with your earphones. But it was hilarious. But
Yeah,
he was a student. He was a student of
that's right.
music and the voice and of the quartets. He loved it,
That's right.
and you could really tell. But yeah, humble guy. I love
Yeah,
him. Um, yeah, so
that's right.
it's really cool.
And like I said, great bass player, but the great vocalist, like you mentioned as well, too. No doubt about it.
Yeah,
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 yeah, that's right.
absolutely.
Well, Mr. Jerry, we'll wrap it up with a couple of items if you don't mind. Somebody had
Sure,
emailed us and asked us, you recorded a CD not too long ago with Les Butler,
I
uh,
did.
Real Southern Gospel Music Quartet, I think, or something like that.
Uh-huh.
One of the songs they mentioned was "Choosing Barabbas." They said if you could re-record it again, picking the 3 other Kingsmen members,
Ooh,
who would you pick? Of course, probably Ray Dean be on bass, of course, but who would
yeah.
you pick, and how would what would that kind of sound like? You would think.
Wow. Yeah. Well, it's hard to say because all the Kingsmen members, um, great vocalists. So,
Yep.
but if I could say during my era, my time there, I thought that Brian and Parker and Ray, we had a good blend, a really good
Yes.
blend,
Yeah.
um, and we really listened to each other.
Yep.
I learned a lot as a Kingsman to blend and knew when to step out and when not to.
Yep.
And that's what we was kind of going for too. Um, Not just having the Kingsman sound,
Yep.
but also to kind of show, yeah, we can also not just be record some cloud of dust, but we can actually sing some really pretty stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so yeah, I definitely say Brian.
Yep.
He's got to be my lead singer. And yeah, I can't say Parker was.
Yep.
He was just stout.
Yep.
I mean, he really was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I still say that lineup.
Oh yeah.
And no slide against anybody because I mean
Right.
anybody can step into those positions.
Oh yeah.
I think it would sound really good. I did like cutting that song.
Yeah.
It was fun. It was different. And when Les approached me about doing that, he knew I wasn't performing anymore.
Right.
He knew that that what I'm doing now is I own Maryville Music Academy,
Yes.
and so I teach voice there. We have over 150 students
Yes.
that I teach every week, but not just in voice, but bass guitar, piano, drums, all kinds of instruments. And we have a recording label there, but my wife and I own it. And I knew that's something that I would probably end up just if I was to leave the stage. That's what I wanted to do.
Yep.
And it's a funny thing too, Josh. The things that I teach in our academy, a lot of that comes from what I learned as a Kingsman, not just vocally, Um, but the way you carry yourself,
Yes.
you know, I call it the 4 Ds, and it's something I live by every day. It's discipline. Got to be disciplined.
Yep.
If you're not disciplined, you're not going to want to practice. You're not going to do all these different things that's going to take you and sustain you, right? It's dedication. You got to be dedicated to the craft and what you're doing. It's also the drive. What drives you to do what you do? What is the love of what you do? So you got drive, you got discipline, you got dedication, you got determination.
Yeah.
Determination is when people tell you you can't do it, but you show them you can.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what I instill in all of our students, every single one of them. And it's that work ethic that the Kingsmen have still to this day, that I apply to my students.
Yes.
And so I want them to learn as I have learned and I have grown. And so when you can pay it forward that way,
Yes, sir.
they have a better chance of reaching their goals and reaching their dreams, just like I did.
Yep. That's right.
And, I owe a lot to the Kingsmen because of that, because, I was taught a lot and I learned a lot. So I'd say between the Kingsmen, and my parents, their support, that, and their work ethic, that's how I was able to step aside, step out of the lights, so to speak,
Right.
and really want to give, and really I want to teach the next generation who either love, any kind of music, but if they love doing what I did, I'm going to show them how to do it,
Yeah.
and do it the correct way, right? And so we've reached a lot of kids, a lot of adults. I'm still I do vocal coaching for a lot of regional and even some professional vocalists, because that's what it takes. It really does take that to keep you up to that level, like we talked about all night. Is like, this is what it takes to maintain that. You have to, because if you don't, you're gonna tank, and you don't want to do that.
Right.
You want to stay true to yourself and stay true to the quartets or the groups that you're singing with.
Right. That's right.
And so, that's it. It all comes full circle. It really does.
That's right.
And the Kingsmen, like I said, they're very instrumental in what I do today.
Yeah.
So, and I tell these lessons all the time. It's like, Eldridge Fox told me, well, there's two ways to sing a song. He said, you can go up and sing the high stuff, but if you don't want to, or if you don't have it that night, then go do something else. And so I would take it a different route, right?
Right.
Because nobody knows if you're under the weather. Nobody knows if you can't hear. All this kind of stuff that goes on that people in the audience, they never know, and you should never show.
Yes.
So that's what I teach my students now. Is that there's always two ways to sing a song. So let's pick the one that you can do that day. So
that's right. That's exactly
right.
right.
So it's pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, traveling with the Kingsmen, I love those guys. I got to Brandon. He was my gaming partner a lot. We'd sit back there and play games. I was probably the first one to ever have a gaming console and a TV in my bunk.
Oh, yeah.
So, I would do that. But we played all kinds of stuff. I love to see what he's doing. I like to see how he's doing and what he's doing with the Kingsmen now, because it's a big role that he's in.
Yeah.
But all the Kingsmen, from where I was traveling with all of them, and to today's, I'm very proud of the Kingsmen today. It's a young group. And that's a good thing. They're learning and they're sounding really good. So I'm very proud of the heritage that the Kingsmen have, that I've been a part of.
Right.
and continue to be a part of in just even a small way. But it's really awesome to be in that brotherhood,
Yes.
to do that, and it's going to carry you on for a lifetime.
That's
So yeah. Unfortunately, I hate that we couldn't have my buddy Brian on.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
yeah, so uh, hopefully that we'll get together again
That's right.
and do another part of this. So it was fantastic
That's right.
to get to share just a little bit of it. We got plenty of stories, but I know we don't have that much time, right? But yeah, so next time we'll
Yeah.
definitely get to some of those.
Well, since you mentioned that, we'll close out. If you don't mind, if you can think of one, give us a funny road story right quick. And like I said, everybody, we'll get him back. We'll get Mr. Jerry back in the future. Another episode, we'll talk, let him and Brian converse about those 30-day out west tours and
Yeah,
all
that's
those memorable times, singing on the Grand Ole Opry and stuff like that as well too. Yeah.
yeah. That was good right there. That was another highlight. But I don't know. There was a lot of. We just had a good time. We had a really good time because everybody got along, and I'd have to think about a real funny story, but
Yeah.
I do remember one time I was in. I think we were in California, and we had just because the bus would park, and Brian was excellent at this because he'd do our itinerary,
Yeah.
and we'd always have a hotel room and in walking distance of food or a mall. I mean, that was it. So we'd park the bus, we'd go grab our showers, and then we'd go find food. And I can't remember exactly where it was, but we were we were walking back, and it was on the side of a road somewhere in town, and there was a lot of grass there, and so we were walking, and then Brian looked down, and there was a snake. I mean, there was a snake. I was about to step on the snake. So I don't know how I did this, but I looked down and I did not, I was going to step down. I didn't step down. Instead, I floated. I mean, I was up in that air. I don't know how high I jumped, but I was up there and there was I don't know what kind of snake it was, but I left it back there and I was like, okay, let's go. But you never know what we're going to get into. It was just fun. It was fun, and they made it fun. They really did. I got to see a lot of the country with the Kingsmen. A lot of times you don't realize that when you're touring, a lot of times you may see the venue that you're going into.
Yeah.
You may see the hotel. That's all you see, because by the time you get done, you're going to go try to find a Waffle House that's going to be open.
And it's nighttime too. Yeah.
Yeah, it's nighttime. So when you're driving, like could be 4, 5, 6, sometimes 8 hours, you don't see nothing.
Yeah.
You wake up into a different city. And you're like, okay, where am I at? Yeah. And so, but the Kingsmen,
that's right,
especially on our West Coast tours, that make it fun. We'd have a day off here and there because it's like, yeah, we don't want to grind it out. So we got to do a lot of cool stuff. I got to see Alcatraz. It was one funny moment that Parker was driving. We had rented a van, a cargo van, a big old cargo van. We piled in there. So what do? We're going down. I think is it San Francisco? I believe it is. The curviest road in the world. It's that brick cobblestone that you see in movies.
Uh-huh.
We were driving down that in that cargo van. I mean, people were on the side walking, and we were just zigzagging across. I don't know how fast we were going, but it was hilarious, and it was just straight down. But we do all kinds of just stuff like that, and just make it fun.
Yeah,
and because you have to have fun on the road. So you can't just be a grind all the time. Right. And then you got to see a lot of the country. When you can take time to take it all in, because it's a beautiful country.
That's right.
And so that was some of the little bit of the of the moments that I can think of right now. But yeah, next time, we'll dive more into that. But yeah,
that's right. Well, everyone, this has been episode 5 of Behind the Crown podcast with our very special guest, Mr. Jerry Martin. Mr. Jerry, let me say thank you for making this Kingsman's fan night, for getting to talk to you. And I remember the time I seen you when you was the Kingdom Heirs down here in Nashville, Georgia, at a church. You spoke to me before the concert. I think it was friends on Facebook, and just so very nice to me. And seeing y'all with the Kingdom Heirs in Byron, Georgia, at that big church up there. and I appreciate you doing this for me, sir. And
Absolutely, it's an honor.
we'll get you back on with Brian
Yeah,
and
anytime.
let y'all tell some good stories. And I'll be soaking it all in as a big Kingsman fan, you know. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Josh, you guys are doing a great job on the podcast. I have enjoyed every episode. I
Thank you.
can't wait to see what else you guys roll out. Yeah, I'm a subscriber. I'm on all your streaming stuff, and yeah, I can't wait to see who you have next because I love listening to the stories as well, and getting the behind the scenes. Glimpse of
Yes.
the way some of those great singers and musicians got to experience as well. So thank you for doing this, man. It's honoring the Kingsman heritage. It's well, I think it's well needed
Yes.
because they're a fantastic group, and like I said, always will be my favorite group. And I think they're doing fantastic right now. Alan and Brandon and Ray and all of them are just fantastic right now. So I'm really looking forward to seeing what they do in the future. And so you never know what will happen.
That's right.
Yeah. So let me know anytime you want me to come back on. I'll be happy to do that for you.
Good deal. Thank you, sir. Thank you, everyone. We appreciate y'all so much.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Behind the Crown podcast with your hosts, Brian Hudson and Josh Griffin. If you would, please like, rate, and share this episode. Join us again for another episode of the Behind the Crown podcast.